Hello my friends, and welcome to Brickbending. Today we're going to be looking at an older build in my collection and trying to escalate. We want to make it bigger and sturdier if at all possible. The build we're looking at is the dodecahedron. Now this thing dates back to probably around the beginning of 2016. I dug around in my old photos to see when I first created this, and that's my best guess. Now there is no long form YouTube video for this creation, but I did make a vertical video that I posted on multiple platforms, and I'll have a link to that in the description. Now this wonderful monster is a dodecahedron, and if you want to get all math nerd for a minute, a dodecahedron is one of the platonic solids. It has 12 faces, and that's with the 12 kind of pentagonal shapes. It has 30 edges and 20 vertices. And part of what I love about this is it's probably the fewest bricks required to make a sphere, or something that approximates a sphere. Now this particular build has about 2,400 pieces in it. In my estimation, it was about 2,340. And it's made of 3 different kinds of Lego elements. The vast majority are 1x2 plates, but I also have 2x2 corner plates in there, and I'm using 1x4 hinge plates to kind of help me create those triple joints. Now I'll double check my terminology in case I got any of those elements wrong. I'm not exactly a stickler for correct nomenclature, and to be honest, I'm actually kind of excited to do this. I have 3 other sphere videos, and I'll put links to those in the description as well. But I've probably built at least 10 sphere variations over the years, some of which I have filmed and some of which I have not, and some of which I will probably never attempt to build again. But at some point I'll do a show and tell video on some of those. And just a note before we get started, as I start making these videos and bringing you into my process, I have a mantra that I tend to repeat, and that is, failure is an option. I have kind of prepped a lot of the parts for this escalation, and I've made my best guess, but until you build it, you don't really know what you're going to get. Now, there is a level of planning I could do to really try to calculate out exactly what I need to do, but that really takes the fun out of it. I like to explore, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it a first iteration, see what happens, and then I'll adjust if necessary. So let's take a look at this dodecahedron, dig into it, take it apart a little bit, and then after we've done that, we'll start the escalation process. So here we go. Well, to start, one of the realities of filming or photographing a sphere, or an approximation of a sphere, is the angle that you put in front of the camera makes a big difference. So as someone who is an absolute slave to symmetry, of course I have to try to line this thing up perfectly. And this one in particular, just depending on the angle that you give it, it really looks different. It's really hard to capture it. This is why I like to have it spinning, because you get that continuous view of many, many, many different angles. But to start, let's just get in here and let's take this apart a little bit. Now, one interesting thing about these builds is that one, being at least 8 years old, these pieces have been under stress for quite a long time. So, one, you can see that these pieces, they actually want to stay in this shape to some degree. And it's pretty amazing how resilient Lego is. I know I get a lot of grief for torturing these bricks a fair amount, but they're really quite a wonder of engineering. So although they have lost some of their clutch power, if we took this apart, the pieces would fit a little more loosely than they used to. For the most part, they're okay. But as my primary use case is build them into a sphere and then leave them forever, it really doesn't matter that they lose some of that clutch. And as I try to straighten it out, it actually straightened a little bit. That's nice. But that shift is pretty easy. Now this technique, I've used it in a number of builds, but it is just staggered 1x2s. If we pop in here and take a few of these off, you can see that underneath that layer, they're just vertical. So that's the pattern over and over and again. You get the staggered 1x2s layered on top of, we'll say, vertical 1x2s. And that gives it that play. So that lets you build a little bit of gap really in any direction. It's a pretty remarkable Lego material, these staggered 1x2s. And they are, well, this is the kind of the linchpin technique for all of these modern spheres. They were not for the first spheres that I did, so and that's a different story and a lot more stressful. Now, when it comes to the joints, the vertices, now I'm not actually going to rip this one off. I'll show you when I'm building out my new ones, but you can see that it's really those hinge pieces that are creating that very strange angle. Essentially, these are 120-degree angles, and that's very not normal in Lego, so I have to construct my own. So I'm using the 1x2s to kind of join the hinges together, and then I'm using that 2x2 corner piece to kind of give me a way to get a stud coming off of that. And you notice there's a kind of a clockwise orientation between that one, this one. All of these 2x2 corners are in the same clockwise orientation, or counterclockwise, whatever makes you happy. Now, I have tried to escalate these spheres in the past, and the mistake I made was that I really escalated. I went hardcore, and the net result of that was a couple of failure videos that I put on my Patreon account for my patrons. And so part of the point today is escalating just a couple of notches. One reality of these spheres is that if you make them too big and there's too much play, they sag. And a kind of a oblong sagging sphere isn't exactly aesthetically pleasing. So we're going to try to avoid that today. So I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about this thing other than, one, it's just awesome. I never get tired of the Lego spheres. And two, I think if we can make this thing about, let's say 20% bigger, that would be interesting. And we're going to go with a different color. Partially because black just doesn't video very well, and also because I'm getting more flexible. Color is not my great gift, but I have broken out in recent years. So let's start looking at what we are going to be playing with. So here we are with a lime green 1x2 plate. So spoiler warning, if you actually are interested in this kind of surprise that I give in some of my videos, you probably don't want to watch this video. If you're listening right now, you're either a patron on my Patreon watching the full cut of this video, or you're watching on my YouTube channel watching the supercut. But I'm going to give you the process by which I create this next big build. So fair warning, if you just want to watch the actual non-descriptive brickbending video, the link will be in the description. What we're going to be making today, we give Caveman a little break here, is a lime green version of what I just showed you on the dodecahedron. And the difference here is that we're going taller than we are wide. So with the other build, those edges, those lines of 1x2s, were essentially square. So they would flex the same in any direction. But because I've made this tall, it's going to flex less in this kind of up and down direction. Has the same flex in the kind of left to right, but not up and down. And that's on purpose. Essentially, if we're going to make this thing bigger, I need to have more tension. It needs to hold more tension so that it doesn't sag and be a sad dodecahedron. It may still be a sad dodecahedron, but we'll find out. The other thing you'll notice is that with this technique, it really wants to pre-bend. Like those other black 1x2s, those black 1x2s are slightly bent because that thing's been bent for 8 years, but these are new bricks. So part of that kind of pre-bend is just the technique. It's just one of the weird aspects of this thing. And just to kind of show you, I have another iteration here. And the difference between these two, see they're the exact same height. But on this one, it's the staggered kind of back and forth that is on the top layer. And on this one, it's the verticals that are on the top layer and the bottom layer. Now this one still has a little bit. It does want to bend a little bit, but not nearly as much as this. I can kind of try to force this flat, but even when I do, it really wants to bend up just a little bit. And to be honest, I don't know why. Something to do with the nature of the brick itself, how it's designed. It's definitely not even top to bottom. And preferentially, I'd actually prefer to build this with the vertical plates on top, but that's not how it works with this technique and how they connect with the vertices, which I'll show you right now. So here is Vertex 2.0, and it's also slightly taller. And in the old build, I only had 2 layers of those hinge plates, and this one I have 3. And if I can get a little closer, you can see a little better how those 2x2 corner plates and the 1x2s kind of fit together with the hinges. But when I construct this for the video, you'll see it in great detail. So we're going to take our 20 vertices and our 30 edges, and we're going to start to construct a dodecahedron. Let the building begin. All right, my friends, this is where either the magic happens or we figure out what we did terribly wrong. So a few thoughts on this build and this iteration of this build. So as I was setting things up, I did some counting. And although I have gone from 5 layers up to 7 layers, the length of the edges of the dodecahedron, I've gone from 17 studs to 39 studs. So I've more than doubled the length. So we'll see if that was an overestimate, in which case the sphere will sag a little bit, or it's an underestimate, in which case it will not complete. It will not allow me to complete it. There'll just be too much tension and it will fail. And this is where half of the fun is just trying it and see what happens. But one quick Easter egg, I checked the footage from before and you can't really see it, but we bring out this one vertex, you can see it's not quite done. And it's kind of funny that you can't even notice it. At least I couldn't notice it when I looked back at the footage. So before we go through and complete this, we are going to finish this one last vertex. And we are now complete. I'm going to have to give myself a little more room here. I'm realizing I've stacked these pretty close, and it's gonna take some reaching back and forth to get this thing done. I don't know if it's coming through on the microphone or not, but of course someone in my neighborhood is vacuuming with an incredibly loud vacuum cleaner, so I can definitely hear it. I'm going to give it a few minutes and hopefully they'll wrap up. Not exactly the ASMR I was looking for. Okay, the industrial vacuum sound in the background appears to have stopped, although you'll still hear an occasional car going by. That is unavoidable. Here we go. The first thing I'm realizing is that this thing is going to be way bigger than I thought. It's funny how each of those individual strips didn't seem that long, each of the edges, but when you put them into a pentagon, it's pretty big. It makes me think it might be a little bit saggy at the end, but we're not going to stop now. Oh, and I'm also going to need to give myself more space, more space than I had anticipated. That's the first order of business up next. Okay, we've gone from the huge to the ridiculous. I have tried to build a dodecahedron that was really big. I think I mentioned it before. The building technique was just too much. It was just too much strain. And of course, I didn't bother to check to see if this is the same scale. But there definitely won't be as much strain on this one. But we're this far in. Let's keep going. You can kind of get a glimpse of the idea of taking a sphere and flattening it out. This is what happens. It's going to have to jump into the third dimension soon here. This bottom line, that has to turn into a pentagon. Let's hope my table's big enough. Well, that last bit went better than I thought. It's not looking too bad, actually. Let's see if we can get a little close up here. Get a little better light on it. You can see the bricks just starting to separate. But that's the joy of having 7 layers, is it gives you some room for failure and separation. 3 layers, you're kind of you're doing a tightrope walk without a net. But 7 gives you some wiggle room. All right, let's tighten this up. Honestly, I probably should have expected it. It's got a lot more weight in it than any previous iteration, and it's strong. All right, 6 faces complete, 6 more to go. It is so hard to capture this on camera appropriately or just to show how weird this thing is. And part of it is when you put all the bricks under tension, when the final shape comes together, that tension distributes perfectly evenly. It's the nature of the energy and the tension. But right now, it is not a perfect shape. So it is all, I don't know, skewed. I better finish this thing up before it gives up. Wow. It actually worked. I bet there are a few more like that. Let's see what this looks like from a wide shot. Okay, some quick measurements, and it's probably 2 or 3 inches wider than it is tall. So sagging's a strong word, but it's definitely a little squished, which means that the edges are too long. So I did 39 studs for the edges before. I think I'll shrink them down to 33. I think it'll still work, but we're going to have a round 2. All right, my friends, Caveman and I are back in the infinite white void, having done some prep work for a round 2. So first, whenever you construct something like what I do, and then you decide to take it apart and do some adjustments and build it again, there's some quality control that you just have to take care of. And so this interesting ocean of lime green Lego studs that's in front of me serves 2 purposes. 1, it's just kind of cool looking. And 2, it satisfies some of my OCD. And 3, it's pretty easy to spot when you have an issue with one of the components. So if I look at one of these individual ones with its little curve there, so each of these needs to be exactly the same, because if in the middle of construction you discover that the piece isn't correct, then sometimes with one hand you got to try to fix that part because you're holding up the sculpture with the other one. And so lining all of that up perfectly, take a little pleasure in that, and also you can spot the issues pretty easily. But I have a few issues that I need to correct, and I wanted to show you those as well. So let's reorient here. So before, I had these strips that were 15 1x2 plates long, and because they're staggered, that actually ends up being 31 Lego studs. And I'll have to go back and check the footage, but I'm pretty sure I said wrong what the count was for the edges on the first iteration of the dodecahedron. If that original length was 31 studs, and we grab one of the vertices here, you can see that when it connects on one side, you're going to get 3, and on the other side, you're going to get 2. So you're going to add 5 studs to the total length. And that might make more sense if I actually show you on either side. So you can see here, when they come together, you're going to add 2 to that length. And on the other side, you're going to add 3 to that length. So these are actually 35 studs long. And the net result of the 35 studs was a slightly squat dodecahedron. So I've made a guess. And I am shrinking this down by 2 1x2 plates. So if this is 31 studs end to end, this one is now 27. And just fair warning, I don't like to count the bricks particularly, so I will probably get them wrong on occasion. So if you're watching this video and you spot something where I'm incorrect, please feel free to put it in the comments, and I can adjust the description of the video accordingly. So we're going to shrink these down, and most of them are done. But a few things I wanted to show as I ripped that past one apart. So first, you can see some of the wrangling that I did taking this apart and even putting it together caused some space to start to appear. So all of the ones in the stack right now I have corrected. I've verified the length and I've compressed them just to make sure they don't come apart next time. Perfect. Another one that I spotted is just missing a few plates. And if I hadn't noticed and I started building, that might have caused me some problems. So I'm going to correct that right now. And a couple more that had some issues. You can see this one. It's easier to see this way. When I line it up, you can see on this side, it's one short. So I'm going to have to correct that. Looks good. And the last one, as I was ripping it apart, that's actually too short. So I ripped off more Lego than necessary. So I got to correct this one as well. we have our 30 edges all lined up in this beautiful ocean of lime Lego studs. The last thing I wanted to show you was this is one of those original strips. And this is the length of Lego that I removed from the overall dodecahedron. Put it way back there. Can't even get the whole thing in camera. So I pulled out a lot. And another lesson I learned from the last video was that although I like having all of the subcomponents in frame while I build, this thing's just too big. So I will be keeping these off while I construct. And while we're here, let's play a little game of Does It Circle. So let's take this strip that came out. It came out of the larger dodecahedron. Could we get it to circle up? Oof. Maybe. Maybe not. I'd say that's a hard no. But if we go this direction, yeah, definitely we could make that work. And I could complete that, but as I don't have the parts to put it to finish it off, it'd be kind of tricky. In the big picture, this staggered noodly 1x2 technique, one of my favorites. So versatile. So from a build prep perspective, I'm ready for round 2. I'm not going to show you my cleanup of the vertices, because 1, I already did it, and I probably should have shown you a few bits and pieces there. But 2, it's really hard to get those wrong. They're built very specifically, and they're very obvious when they're not built correctly. So without further yammering, let's try another Lego dodecahedron. So I'm curious what everyone else thinks, but this is definitely easier than the last one, which is strange because it's definitely under more tension, but just logistically wrangling it is not as hard. I'm going to try to get a shot of this kind of 5-petal flower thing that's going on, but first I have to tighten up a few joints. This thing makes me very, very happy. So lots of shots from lots of angles. I think the one last thing I want to do is make this thing spin. And I have 2 small turntables, and they're not going to work for this. But luckily, a while back, I bought a big turntable, and I haven't even unboxed it yet. So I'm going to get that thing out, and let's see if we can make this spin. So final thoughts on this beast. So one, I think I could actually make it one notch smaller. I think I could remove another 1x2 in the edges, in the length of the edges, and I bet it would be a little more, there'd be a little more tension, and it would be a little less squat. It's about 25 inches tall when you measure the diameter of the sphere. It's like 26, a little over 26 wide. But to be honest, I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe one day I'll go back and do a round 2 experiment. But if you've watched my videos, then you know that making it bigger is more interesting than making it smaller. So will I build a larger dodecahedron? That's almost a guarantee. But I might try to scale up a different sphere first. This is just one I haven't touched in a long time. The second thought is, although when you're constructing it, it does feel pretty fragile. And while it's not fully connected, there's all of that tension going in strange directions, which is not good. It's pretty sturdy. Picking it up, I'd have no problem. Moving it somewhere else, I could probably even get it in a car and drive it somewhere. But worst case scenario, pops apart, you put it back together. It's pretty sturdy for what it is. Third thing, I like the color. I have to say I'm a huge fan of black Lego bricks. It's the most elegant color to work with, but pushing myself to work in different color has been kind of fun. And this kind of double green, kind of frog dodecahedron, that's pretty cool too. And lastly, I guess the thing I'd say is that Lego spheres or polyhedra or whatever you want to define this as, they're just amazing. And this building technique is just fun. So yes, in full disclosure, I'm putting these bricks under distress, and they'll never quite be the same again if I leave them like this for a year or two. But is it worth it? 100%. Because you get a Lego dodecahedron. And the other thing to note is that at the beginning of this video, when I built out the strips and I recorded all of that, I recorded the strips too long. So I have a question. Do I take this apart and film that again? Or do I just put it in the actual video and throw a little asterisk by it? Haven't decided yet. Right now, I'm leaning on just putting it out there, but we'll see. If I do, I won't burden you all with just another shot of me putting together a Lego strip. Okay, that's it. Thanks, my friends. It's been fun. Let's do this again sometime.